It is a cold, wet, windy day today with more rain expected coming up here shortly. And so I thought it would be the perfect day to be inside. But not only be inside, but kicking off our first Tuesday video of the season. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. And not only is it our first Tuesday video, but I'm kicking off a segment, a monthly segment today that I want to try. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this idea. There's a lot of things when I'm going about my gardening life here that I want to tell you, that I feel like you need to know if you're doing some of the things that I'm doing. But those things wouldn't take a full video. And so I haven't really figured out the whole reels and shorts thing. These things don't work in a post. So I thought, what if we did a video once a month for covering gardening tasks that you should be doing that month, no matter what climate you're in. So not only covering, what tasks should be done, let's say February, but simple instruction or pointing you to videos that I've already done about the subject, just kind of keeping you on track and at the same time keeping me on track with what we should all be doing at that time in the garden. So I didn't think of this until a few days ago, and by that time I'd already missed January and we're halfway through February. So we're going to start right now. I'm going to do kind of a recap of January and then February, because the things that you can do in both of those months typically can be caught up with. There's not a lot going on right now that we all have to be, really sticking to something. There's a lot of relaxation time in January and February, so I think we'll be okay. Now, January and February are two of my favorite gardening months. Now, before you throw your phone or your laptop or chuck something at the TV, let me explain. I'm saying this for everyone, not just this, spoiled California boy with most of the time good weather. I'm saying this because January and February are the best months for dreaming and planning. And there's no excessive heat, there's no bugs, there's no disease. None of that's happening right now. For the most part, it's all time to just let your imagination go and think about how great the gardening year is going to be and what you want to do. Now, for me, reading is the way I do that. There's no better months than like December, January, February than to, get some gardening books and, get a cup of coffee, get a fire going and just read while the rain is pouring down outside, or snow in some people's cases. So I've gotten 4 new gardening books this winter alone, and I'm just finishing up the 4th one. This is the time to absorb all this new education that you can put into practice throughout the coming year and throughout the rest of your gardening life. So I thought it would be kind of fun if I recommended some of my favorite books in case reading is your thing too. So first of all, obviously, I'm going to recommend my own book, Companion Planting for Beginners. This has been out almost a year. It'll be a year next month. I can't believe it. Came out. It was the #1 gardening book for a while on Amazon, thanks to you guys. And so for those of you who bought it and love it, thank you. I'm happy to hear that. For those of you who don't know anything about it, it's not only companion planting. The title is somewhat misleading, but that's what the publisher wanted. There is companion planting all the way through it, but the beginning couple of chapters are really some good basic knowledge on gardening no matter where you are. I'll put a link to a review I did of the book just to show you inside a little bit and see what it's all about. Now, if you're in Southern California, specifically Southern California, we have a completely different way of gardening here than anywhere else because there's nowhere else quite like Southern California, maybe parts of France, Spain, and Australia. But this book was my first gardening book I ever had. This is actually the newer edition of it because the other one was so wrecked and messed up. I have had this book, the first book, since the 90s. And this one I got a few years ago as an updated version. But it's Pat Welsh's Southern California Gardening. It's a month-by-month guide of what to do gardening here in Southern California. So if you live here, I highly recommend that book. I'm going to leave links to everything I talk about, videos and books down below in that video description. I recommend anything by Sarah Raven or Monty Don. I'll put a few of my favorites down below. I just finished reading Down to Earth by Monty Don. This is a great, this also has a month-by-month portion of the book. And this would be for everybody, but for the month-by-month, it's more going to be for climates that get more cold in the winter. Sarah Raven she has things on vegetables as well, but she really has a lot on flowers. And because I haven't done a lot of flower gardening in a long, long time, and now I have all of this new space here, especially getting started with the cottage garden this season, I really wanted to brush up. So I got a couple of her books. I'll leave the links down below. I've learned more from her almost in one book than I've learned from so many people in a long time. Now, once the chicken coop is finished and the cottage garden is planted, we are moving on. Back here out these windows is going to be our tropical garden. And I am so excited about that. If you guys were with me back at our old house, you know that the majority of my property was tropical. And I'm really looking forward to, that's kind of my passion, my heart really when it comes to ornamentals. I love all of the different things you can grow. Now, before you switch the video off thinking, well, I don't live in a tropical climate or a subtropical climate or a Mediterranean climate like you do, so I can't grow those things. That's not true. In fact, there's a lot of you who have way more tropical summers than we have because you've got the moisture and we don't. Now, there's certain tropicals that you're going to have to protect over the winter or grow them as annuals, but that's what this book is great for. Tropical plants and how to love them. And she is from Northern Virginia, I believe. So we're talking icy winters, not tropical winters. And so she goes through, the different plants that are tropical or tropical looking. There are stand-in tropical plants that will be able to be left out in the winter. And then there's some that are kind of half hardy that she tells you how to protect them. And then there's some that are not hardy at all that, you can bring in as grow as houseplants or grow as annuals. But the way she lays it out is absolutely perfect. If you're interested in tropical gardening and growing along with me, this will be for you. So really take advantage of this season right now to relax and, bone up on education for the coming year and forever by reading books or by watching my videos or other people's, whatever. All right, so let's get off the couch, outside into the dirt and figure out what jobs should be done in January and February in the garden. Now, number one, the most important thing. Now, this can go from January to April depending on what climate you're in. But a lot of times in many climates, January, February is bare root planting season. Fruit trees, deciduous fruit trees, roses, asparagus, strawberries, different kinds of perennials. This is the time when they are dormant, and it's the best time to plant them where they will take off quickly and grow really strong. If your ground is workable right now, meaning it's not frozen solid, and if it's not a wet, sopping mess, then this is the time for you, and your garden centers probably have those bare root plants in stock. And they go quick because it's a short window of time to plant them. So I did a video just a couple weeks ago on bare root fruit trees. I'm going to be doing a video. I was supposed to be doing a video today for Valentine's Day for planting roses, but my roses haven't arrived yet. They have all the way till the end of February, so it looks like they're going to push it that far. So I will be doing a rose planting video when those arrive. Did bare root strawberries and asparagus this past Sunday. So again, all these links are down below. And then I'm also going to be planting bare root berries. So raspberries, blackberries, and blueberries. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up soon. Make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. Speaking of fruit trees, deciduous fruit trees, now is the time. It's the first time in the year to dormant spray. And I will leave a link below to the product that I use. It's a dormant oil. It's organic. But what it does is it takes care of any little critters, any pests that have burrowed in to maybe the buds or somewhere in the bark, depending on how old the tree is, that are going to come out in the spring when the leaves start to unfurl. And so they'll, one of the ways they represent themselves is in peach leaf curl. That's a big problem. But you can minimize that by doing a dormant spray. In the late winter, early spring, depending on where you are, so right about now, before the buds start to swell and open, or before they open for sure. And then you're going to do it a second time in the fall when all the leaves drop off. So there's 2 times a year to do that. Right now is the first one of the year. It's also time for potatoes. In most climates right now, it's time to start chitting your potatoes. If you do that, for me, especially in a climate that you don't get your spring planting until a little bit later, maybe April, then starting to chit them in February, March, you're going to get a jump on things because they'll already be sprouted. They'll already have their roots starting to form. So when they go in the ground, they can take off quickly. I chit my potatoes also because you can see some that aren't going to sprout, or they might wither away to nothing, and you're not taking up space in your garden planting something that's not going to come to fruition. So to chit your potatoes, I just take the potatoes and put them on like an egg carton, put them in a bright window. It doesn't have to be super sunny, but you want them to have a little bit of light because that's going to stimulate them and get them off to a really good start. Now is the time to start your sweet potato slips. It's getting really dark outside. Can you tell? You don't want to wait on this at all, especially if you have snow on the ground right now outside, you especially don't want to wait. And you probably are the ones that are thinking you can wait, but you cannot. Sweet potatoes take a very long time to grow, a long season. Getting started right now, they will hopefully be ready in October. Rain just started. And I have a video down below linked that we did a whole complete growing guide from starting the slips all the way to the huge, incredible harvest that we got. I'll link it down below. So in the beginning of that video, it starts with starting the slips. Last year, I did it again, tried it again, and my sweet potato actually rotted. So I had to purchase some sweet potato slips, which you can do. And so just that whole thing pushed me back, and then waiting for them to arrive, which seemed like it took forever, took so long that I did not get hardly anything last year. I had these tiny little sweet potatoes. I didn't even make a video on it because it was embarrassing. However, I left some plants in the ground or in the raised bed that they happened to be in, and they just kind of sat there and were looking like, really haggard. I mean, they had some green a little bit, but mostly kind of dead. I plucked some off. And within just 2 weeks, the jar is filled with roots. So that was a really quick way to do it. I didn't have to root the sweet potato and get them going that way. So if you have plants left over that maybe you were too lazy to dig up, or you were like me and knew you weren't going to get a harvest because it was late, but they're still growing, run out there, snip some off. It's just another way of doing it. It's getting really warm in here. All right, so where were we? Okay, so we can still also plant in mild climates. Obviously, if you don't have snow on the ground right now and your ground's not frozen, you can still put in transplants from the garden center of cool season vegetables. So peas, broccoli, kale, cauliflower, all the cool season stuff, you can put in transplants right now. It's too late for seeds, but transplants will still work. You can also start seeds for summer crops in certain areas. Check your frost date. I'll leave a link to that down below. Check the downloadable free automatic filling worksheet on my website. I'll leave a link down there to that as well, where you can just put in your frost date after you figure it out, and it will tell you when you can start all of your summer crops, either indoors or directly outdoors. Now is also a great time to sow hardy annual flowers. I did a week or so ago, it was last Friday's video, on how to do that. So I'll link that down below as well. And perennials can be planted now. We already talked about perennial vegetables like asparagus and strawberries, but perennial flowers, all the ornamentals. If your ground is workable, not frozen, and not a soggy mess, you can get your perennials in the ground and they will start to develop their roots. You may not see much happening on top. You might if you're in a mild climate, but they're developing their roots so that when the weather warms up, they're going to take off and grow quickly. Now, one thing that the mild climate gardeners have to worry about right now is weeds. They're probably popping up all over the place. And if they're not, they will be. Even in your cold winter gardens, they're coming. So keep on top of them. get them done. You want to take them out before they go to seed for sure, especially the annual grasses and things, which is what I've got a lot of. So I'm going to be heading out there once it dries out in a couple of days with the weed whacker and cutting it all down. And then you got to be on top also of the perennials, dandelions, Bermuda grass, couch grass, whatever you have. Stay on top of it, because once they bloom, in terms of annuals, it's going to take another 7 years to get rid of them, because those seeds can keep opening up and germinating throughout the next many years. And so they always say, getting rid of it now will save 7 years of weeding. So do that. Well, that's it. January and February are, very simple months for most of us, and there's not a lot to do, but there are certain jobs like bare root planting that need to be done sooner versus later. So I know this video wasn't a lot of instruction. I'm hoping to have had all that down in the video description with all of the links. This is just something to keep us all on track month to month. So let me know if you got something out of this. Now, obviously, March, April, May, June, those are going to be a lot more intense of this type of stuff because there's a lot more to do. But let me know in the comments if you guys got something out of this and if I should keep doing it. I'll see you next time.